what many people probably don't realize is what these studies reveal is if you're getting less than 6 hours sleep a night, your risk of developing all sorts of medical problems goes up dramatically. When you think about it, losing that over time is directly correlated with the increase in illness.
Hey everybody, it's Dr. Brian Prax here, author of Reversing Neuropathy, Making the Impossible Possible, and I am super excited to welcome the chairman, the CEO, and the founder of Soltec Health, Dan Cohen, MD. He's board certified neurologist, inventor, and a strategic marketer. Dr. Cohen co-founded and managed CNS Inc., which was acquired by GlaxoSmithKline in 2006 for $566 million. He is the lead developer of brainwave monitors and sleep disorder diagnostic equipment. He was the developer and marketer of the Breathe Right nasal strips and Fiber Choice chewable fiber supplements. I'm happy to report that Dr. Cohen himself reached out to me, I think by the hand of God, to introduce me to the sleep machine that he invented. I do recommend using this technology to anyone who has trouble sleeping, and as we'll learn, more than that as well. I'm a nightly user. Dr. Cohen, I know you're a nightly user as well. Welcome to our podcast today.
Well, thank you, Brian. Very nice to be here.
Yes, we love having you here. So, Doc, you're a medical neurologist, one who specializes in neurology, the study of the nervous system. Are you practicing? Are you a full-time inventor? Tell us maybe a little bit about your story, who you are, and what you do.
After I finished my residency in neurology, I stayed at the university for a year doing some research. And then I decided rather than work as a neurologist, I wanted to develop technology that would help a broader range of patients. And so, in essence, at that point, I started a company and started to work on different technologies.
How about that? So, as a researcher, you got into inventions. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your inventions? I'm familiar with this Breathe Right. I've seen it all over. One of my biggest mentors online uses them. His name is Alex Hormozy. He actually does his interviews with this strip. Is that the strip that you're talking about? And let's go over that. I'm very interested in that and Fiber Choice. And then, of course, we're going to get into Soltec. But take us through this invention process.
Everybody assumes I'm the Breathe Right guy because I'm the one who launched it, but I am not the inventor. The inventor came into my office one day, and the nicest guy in the world. He comes in with a Curad Band-Aid with a piece of plastic glued on top of it. And you could tell he was a little sort of shy about it. I think his family would probably laugh at him about this invention. And as soon as he showed it to me, I fell in love with it. I immediately knew how it should be designed, and I licensed it immediately without telling my board of directors. And I got to tell you, they weren't too pleased with me because we were a capital medical equipment company, having developed the first automated brainwave monitor and then automating sleep diagnostics. And so they just couldn't believe it because we were a public company. And they said, we're a capital medical equipment company, and you licensed a nose Band-Aid. They said, what were you thinking? And I had already planned on hiring some people from Big Pharma to help launch this because it was a consumer good. And here we are, a capital medical equipment business selling products to hospitals. And so the contingent of the board came into my office 2 days later and says, you like this Breathe Right thing so well, you launch it. And hire somebody to run our capital medical equipment side of the business. And so I said, okay. So I'm the guy who launched it, but not the inventor.
Going back to the company, did I get that right? Was the name of your company CNS Inc.?
Yes.
Now, the first thing I think of as CNS, of course, is the central nervous system. Do we have a double entendre here? What's the full name of CNS?
Well, actually, the two of us founders were Cohen and Strobel. So there was we really went by central nervous system. I mean, obviously people refer to it as CNS, and we wanted them to think the central nervous system, but for us, it was Cohen and Strobel.
First thing I thought of for sure, and GlaxoSmithKline acquired it. So I'm very curious about that company. Was that the medical device company that you created? And why would a company pay $500 million in order to acquire this CNS company. What did you provide to them?
Well, at that time, our revenues were about $140 million and profits were very substantial. They liked the brand. That was sort of the going rate. We felt like it was the right time to sell the business.
And you had medical diagnostic equipment there. You had your brainwave equipment or the Breathe Right. What were you selling?
Well, actually, we had already sold the capital medical equipment business.
Okay.
And so we were focused on consumer products. And at that point, they were producing all the revenue.
Got it. All right. So you're a medical doctor who's not practicing. You're a researcher, you're a scientist, you're an inventor. And the topic of today is going quite well with the dropping of this podcast because we're in March here, and this is the National Sleep Awareness Month. So I'd like to segue into the National Sleep Awareness Month and talk about sleep. I think that really is your forte within the realm of the nervous system, which is your specialty as a neurologist. Tell me if I'm wrong. You're really niched into the importance of sleep and the nervous system and stress, or maybe you can go into that. Let's shift into sleep and the importance thereof.
I think everybody realizes how important sleep is. I mean, if you don't get a good night's sleep, you wake up tired in the morning, you don't do as well that day. And what many people probably don't realize is there have been numerous long-term studies done on tens of thousands of people. And what these studies reveal is if you're getting less than 6 hours sleep a night, your risk of developing all sorts of medical problems goes up dramatically. And so sleep is very key, but there's a big unfortunate factor in relationship to sleep. And that is the most important stage of sleep is called deep sleep, also known as delta sleep or slow wave sleep, because the brain waves are very slow. And that stage of sleep essentially repairs the body, at night. It's responsible for secreting 80% of your growth hormone, which heals and regenerates cells. It bolsters the immune system. I won't bore you with all the details, but it does so much physiologically to heal the body. And here's the unfortunate fact. We lose a lot of that deep sleep as we age. Even by the time we reach our mid to late 40s, we've already lost 60 to 70% of our deep sleep. By the time you're 70 or 80, you have very little deep sleep at all. And when you think about it, losing that over time is directly correlated with the increase in illness. So in a sense, this explains to some degree why that is.
As we age, we lose so many things. And I think it might be really tied in with the law of physics called entropy, that things tend to go toward disorder. But I think of the aging process, and even myself in my mid 50s, I know the research, I've been experiencing it myself. If we don't really keep after it, naturally we're going to lose the muscle system. We lose muscles, we lose bones, we lose our cognition, we lose our dang eyesight, our hearing. Like all of these things are working with entropy. They're going toward less and less and less. But now you're telling me that we're losing our ability to get into this deep sleep, into these delta waves. In science or philosophy, do we have any idea why we're losing this, Doc?
It's a good question, but the areas of the nervous system that produce deep sleep, for some reason, like many other areas of the brain, they become less functional, and there's likely cell loss. And with that, and because it's very intricate circuitry that is involved with deep sleep. And so it's not surprising that with age and lack of activity, and that includes not just physical, but mental, there is a decline in brain cells. And so you lose this functionality. Plus, a lot of this functionality is required to maintain those brain cells. And, as we get older, we become less active physically and also mentally.
We're probably in a perfect storm of degeneration, especially in the Western world, and especially in North America, especially in the United States of America, because it seems that we have this hustle mentality. When I compare ourselves to our French peers and maybe even England and our European peers, we are Americans, and we are proud that we work hard, we work long, we fill our days. And when I say we, I mean me too. We fill and schedule every single minute of our days. And even when we're going to the bathroom or waiting on a bus, we now have these cell phones where we can constantly even disengage from the reality, and we're staying up later. I mean, with the invention of the light bulb and then the TV and then the internet, we have so many things that can entertain us. And so we're increasing, the entertainment of ourselves, keeping ourselves busy and productive. And it seems that what's taking the hit is sleep. And sleep is going down, 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 down. And Doc, it wasn't really, I mean, we know about it. The triad that we talk about, at least from the natural world that I'm in, is the integrity of the nervous system, exercise, and nutrition. We always talk about the three triads and how important those are. But it really wasn't until I read the book by Matthew Walker. He writes the book Why We Sleep. It was about 350 pages, chock full of the importance of sleep. And I want you to speak to this, but when I got done reading the science behind sleep, it really took those three things, almost flipped them on their head, because in my case, sleep wasn't even on there. I mean, like you said, I knew it was important, but now it's like, oh, now I got it on the list. But after reading that, it really like went up to I would have to say almost that the number one most important thing would be sleep, and then maybe nutrition and exercise and the integrity of the nervous system. But can you talk toward that, the importance of sleep, not just our moods and our attitudes, our ability to think, but I want to go a little more into its importance to healing, maintaining the integrity of the body. And of course, we're on a channel where we talk about healing the nervous system. I'm getting way ahead of myself. So why don't you tell us more about the importance of sleep and maintaining the integrity of the human?
Brian, I think you're correct. I mean, I think a lot of people, after they read Matthew Walker's book, felt the same way. That typical triad of, diet, exercise, and sleep really should be sleep way ahead of the
Yeah.
other two. And the
Yeah.
reason for that is, let's say you don't sleep enough, but you exercise. The value of that exercise is going to grossly diminish if you're not spending enough time in bed and having quality sleep. And that includes deep sleep,
Okay.
because the benefits of that exercise won't be realized without the function of growth hormone, which is secreted during deep sleep. So if you're
Yeah.
not sleeping well, that exercise is much of it's going to go to waste. On the other
Wow.
hand, the factor that's also important is that this is a sort of a virtuous cycle,
Mm.
because you need good sleep to be able to get the benefits of exercise. And exercise, on the other hand, helps you get better sleep. But you
Uh,
have to have the potential to get good sleep, which means your circuitry in your brain has to be intact and functional. It also means, you know, you've got to spend the time allowing to get enough sleep. So you've got to dedicate a certain amount of time for sleep. And most people don't realize, they say, well, I go to bed at 11 o'clock, I wake up at 7 o'clock, I got 8 hours. Well, that's typically not true,
right.
because, figure that the amount of sleep you're getting is about an hour less than your time in bed.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when people say, well, I was in bed for 6 hours, so I got my 6 hours, guess what? You probably got five. So,
Wow.
right.
Yeah.
It takes time to fall asleep. Typically, it's considered normal if you have up to 5 awakenings at night.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got that cumulative period of time that you're awake. And then, typically you don't get out of bed until you've been awake in bed for a little while. So
That's
when you
right.
add all that up, you've pretty much lost an hour of sleep.
Jeez, and I'm seeing that as well. Having using the Soltec, it gives me the actual data of how long I've recorded sleep. 'Cause it's real easy. You just put start recording and stop recording, and it just measures that time. But what I
Mhm.
think is really unique about the Soltec is it's also measuring, and I don't know. I'd like to dive into this. But how in the world does it measure how long? It literally tells me you took 10 minutes to finally fall asleep, or 18, or sometimes an hour. And why don't we just dive into that? Like, with this Soltec technology, how in the world can you tell when I'm sleeping, when I'm awake, when I'm in light sleep, deep sleep, REM? What's up with this little watch thing I'm wearing, Doc? How can you tell that?
Well, it's an interesting question, and it gets back to my days where, we as a company, CNS Inc., pioneered computer assisted sleep diagnostics. So we
Okay.
were the first one back in the mid 80s to mid 90s,
Wow.
developed all that equipment both for in lab as well as portable.
Oh,
But back then, we were working with sleep labs. And when you go to a sleep lab for a sleep recording, they're measuring brainwave activity,
yes.
eye movement activity, and chin muscle activity. And that's how
Oh,
they stage sleep. When you
hmm.
look at these wearables, it's an entirely different story because you're not
Yeah.
hooked to electrodes here, here, and here. And so we have to rely on things like motion. Are you moving around? But also, more importantly, we have to look at the variability in your heart rate because there's
Yes.
a lot we can learn about that because that reflects what we call the autonomic nervous system, which is part of the brain as well as peripheral nervous system
Right.
that regulates all of the body's functions. It regulates the functions of every organ in the body, and it does
Yeah.
it below your level of consciousness. And it was developed that way so that you didn't have to pay attention. Imagine if you had to think about all the biochemical processes in your liver and kidney and
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have nothing, you wouldn't be able to do anything else. So all of that happens automatically. So the
Right.
autonomic nervous system, ANS, functions to do that. And not only does sleep originate there, but also stress. And so it's a very, very important part of the nervous system. And a lot of people, neurologist goes nowhere without his brain, right? So so if you look at this is the cortex of the brain, all of this
Yep.
area. All right. And even though when you go into a sleep lab, they measure brain waves to help you understand sleep, sleep actually comes from this area.
Hmm.
This is the pacemaker of sleep.
Yeah.
Okay, the brainstem.
Yeah, we're
And
in the ponds there, it looks like.
yeah, in the
Yeah.
pons, also a little bit of the medulla and a little bit of the midbrain,
Okay.
but that area regulates all of these functions. That's sort of the brain of the autonomic nervous system.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then most of the structure of the autonomic nervous system is peripheral, and
Right.
so that area though is very, very vital to understanding the various sleep stages because you can see different heart rate variability in the different sleep stages. I don't want to get too technical, but when we developed our technology, we developed the therapeutics first, figuring we
Mhm.
would team up with all these other wearable companies. And what we learned is that the wearable companies, when they look at heart rate variability, do so only in what's called the time domain. I wanted to look at it in the frequency domain because it's much more accurate. So we ended up building our own wearable to be able to detect the different stages of sleep. And what's important is you need to know what stage of sleep you're in real time.
Okay.
So our wearable essentially says, okay, the subject is moving into deep sleep. So let's tell the magnetic generator what frequencies to put out that will enhance deep sleep. So it
Oh,
sends a real quick signal, to the generator, and then the generator puts out those frequencies to enhance or support that stage of sleep. And it does the same thing for putting somebody into sleep as well as helping somebody maintain dream sleep. So that's vital.
wow.
And so it'll make about 40 adjustments every night in terms of enhancing these stages of sleep.
All right. That wow, there's a lot to unpack there, and where do I even start? I really want to go back into this autonomic nervous system, which a lot of times with the layperson, I'll call it the automatic nervous system. That nervous system that automatically controls those things, like the breakfast that I ate. I'm not over here sitting here thinking we need to release 30 grams of gastric acid right now in order to break that down, and then after that I'm going to need to squeeze it a little. It's like automatically happening. And
Yeah.
a lot of my neuropathy patients know about the peripheral nervous system. When I explain it, I say it's any of the nerves that either leave the brain or the spinal cord itself. So, and then I usually go, like the nerves that leave the neck and go down into the arms, the hands, and the fingers,
Yeah.
and the ones that leave the lower back and go into the legs, into the feet, and into the toes. And they're like, yeah, that makes sense because I have my burning, tingling, and numbness in those parts, my hands, my feet. But they really don't. They really kind of get blown away when I say, yeah, but the peripheral nervous system also includes the autonomic nervous system. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we got the brain of the autonomic nervous system being a little bit above where the spinal cord ends up here at the base of the skull. We got the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata. If
Right.
that's the yeah, if that's the brains of the autonomic nervous system right up there,
Right. So the
then
spinal cord comes up, and what you were
perfect.
referring to is the brain
Yeah.
stem, and he's
Yes.
right in this aspect. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. This is the brain of what you call the automatic nervous system. Exactly.
Right. It's an awesome thing. And the mechanisms of how it is speaking to our internal organs, from the heart, the lungs, the liver, the digestive organs, all the way down, from what I learned, all the way down to about the umbilicus, the belly button. And it's doing that through this cranial nerve 10 called the vagus nerve, right? Where that vagus nerve is coming off of the midbrain there, and it's going down, it's going all the way down and innervating all of our internal organs. Is that pretty accurate?
That's one division. There's actually three divisions of the ANS, but the two that are best known are the sympathetic and parasympathetic.
Right, right.
The vagus nerve conveys most of the activity of the parasympathetic division. There's an area in the sacrum, S2 to S4, which also
Mm.
conveys some additional activity, again, for the parasympathetic division. And the parasympathetic division is known for rest and digest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when you're
Healing,
sort of at
recuperating.
peace, you've eaten it, and it sends out all the requisite hormones and functions to basically digest the food and to help you relax. On the other hand, the sympathetic division is known for fight or flight.
Yes.
And that's the one that is really important from a survival standpoint. If all of a sudden you're attacked, you want the sympathetic to come to life because that sends more blood flow to the muscles
The
so that you
limbs.
can
Yeah.
act. It increases blood glucose levels. It increases adrenaline. Your
Heart rate,
pupils dilate,
pulse.
heart rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of
Yeah.
these things happen. And that's called acute stress. And
Yeah.
acute stress is actually healthy because it allows you to either fight or flee.
Yes.
Okay. Again, it's serving your survival instinct. That's the
Right.
value of the sympathetic. The problem is, and you mentioned it before when you said we're busy, 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 doing all these things, staying up too late, not getting enough sleep. That leads to what's called chronic stress.
Yes.
So now you're imbalanced. There's more sympathetic activity than parasympathetic activity. And that, I would argue, is as important, if not more important, than sleep, because having chronic stress also creates insomnia and all sorts of sleep problems.
I think like you were saying, our nervous systems are still pretty much the same as they were as our Paleolithic caveman, cavewoman ancestors. But back then, they I believe they mostly had acute stress, like, oh, Tyrannosaurus Rex is coming after me. I need to run away.
That's right.
Or, oh, I'm about ready to fall off a cliff. Or I need to, that lion is potentially going to eat me. So that acute stress is run away, climb up a tree, get a club, or whatever. And we're still wired in pretty much the same way. But most of us are getting stressed not over a lion chasing us, but we're getting stressed over not getting enough likes on our YouTube channel or our Facebook, or we're getting stress over driving in traffic where we're not. I mean, I guess we could certainly potentially die in a traffic accident, but we're stressed because we're late. We're stressed because we're not getting there. We're stressed because we're thinking about what happened last night. And then this, I think, like you said, the acute stress of running from a lion is good and healthy, and the brain can tolerate that. with all the cortisol and all that's released, but with this chronic release of these potentially harmful chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline, good in a short period, but can be really harmful and even damaging the central nervous system and even the peripheral nervous system, right? So this chronic stress can actually increase or speed the degenerative process of our brain and our nervous system. Yeah?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, when you think about chronic stress and the deleterious effects, they're enormous. And you mentioned one key hormone, cortisol. Cortisol ends up causing so many problems in terms of insulin resistance, obesity, diabetes as a result, greater inflammation. So you can't fight off infections. You don't prevent cancer as well because your immune system is not working as well. You don't clear certain neurotoxins that happen during the day,
Yeah.
proteins and beta amyloid plaque from the brain. And so all of this
Whoa.
stuff, as well as just causing hypertension and cardiovascular disease. So when you look at all of those negative factors, it's all about chronic stress that is causing them. And what's unfortunate for people is they don't even realize how stressed they are
Yeah.
because it's such a gradual process and they live with it on a chronic basis that has become their norm.
Right.
And what's really important is to learn how to relax to the point where you go, wow, this is what it feels like to have no stress. And then when you start to experience stress, you could say, wait a minute, why am I stressed? What can I do about this? And oftentimes it's the very common problems that cause chronic stress, things like finances, relationships,
Right.
how you think about yourself in terms of people criticizing you, and how do you take that in. So
For
there's a lot
real.
of psychological factors that are involved,
Yeah.
and those have to be remediated. But first and foremost is you need to learn what it's like to not have stress. So the relaxation part, I mean, some people resort to relaxation exercises or meditation or biofeedback. Unfortunately, they rarely stick with them
Mm-hmm.
long enough to become good enough at them to take themselves down to zero stress. And you've got to get to that baseline.
Wow. Again, there's a lot to unpack there, and what I want to do is just take a moment to maybe encapsulate or summarize what we're talking about. And I think what I've heard is number one, sleep is critically important to the healing process. So I'm going to bring this down into my patients and those on the World Wide Web who are watching this right now to know with regard to the nervous system and healing the nervous system. It seems what I'm hearing from the research that we talked about in the book, from what you're talking about, that sleep is really paramount to everything else. If we're going to prioritize things like, should I focus on sleep? Should I focus on diet? What about exercise, stress management? We have all these 3 or 4 different things. And it seems that what I'm hearing is stress management coupled with sleep. And then you talked about it, how it's connected with exercise, like getting good exercise helps you to sleep, but you need sleep in order to appreciate the benefits of exercise, and exercise helps you to sleep, and this whole amazing circle. But then you are what you eat, so we got nutrition. But regarding the nervous system and the healing of the nervous system, I think what I'm hearing is sleep is really important and stress management is important, and this encapsulates it. But your invention, the Soltec, you're really kind of blowing me away and answering some questions, because I can say as a testimonial, it's definitely working for me. It's definitely working. But I also, even though I'm an analytical person, I read everything in and out and all that, I didn't get it. But I got it a few minutes ago when you said, as a person is being identified as getting into that delta sleep, that deep sleep, something from the wearable is probably through the Bluetooth is talking to the mechanism underneath my bed, just to give somebody the concept of what are they actually talking about. And I think we can roll some B-roll here so we can see what your machine looks like. But it's this thing, this mechanism that's about, I don't know, 2 feet wide or whatever, and it's pretty heavy. It's maybe 20 pounds or something. I slide it underneath my bed. I have it there permanently connected. It's plugged in. It has these magnetic things in there that I can see are whirring around. And now that I'm getting it, the wearable is tracking where I'm at with my sleep, whether it's light sleep, REM, whether it's delta or whatever, and it's communicating with this. And I'm hearing from you that it's making little adjustments with these magnet things. I'm going to ask you to clarify a little more because this is just me trying to understand this whole complex process. But it's then communicating with that, like, oh, okay, cool. We're going into some delta. Let me send a message down there and get this. We want more of this delta. Am I getting it right? And so it changes what these magnets are. How the heck do these magnets help me to enhance my delta sleep? What help me out here?
Yeah, well, actually, you did a very nice job of explaining how it essentially works.
Oh,
But the technical aspects of the magnets are, and it took us a long time to figure this out. It's kind of embarrassing to tell you how long.
that's okay.
It was literally about 15 years,
Wow.
working on this project before we understood what we were doing. I mean, it was a very difficult task. When people think about the nervous system and brain waves, the nervous system operates at certain brainwave levels. And typically for the cortex and the different stages of sleep, when you use brain waves to measure them, you're looking at delta waves that are between 0.5 and 3.5 cycles per second. So, a wave, like think of a sine
Okay.
wave.
Yeah.
And so at 1 hertz, you have one complete sine wave in a second. At 3.5 hertz, you got 3.5.
Okay.
Okay. So that would be deep sleep. When you have a certain amount of that activity, in a prescribed time period, then it's delta sleep or deep sleep or slow wave sleep.
All right. All
Okay.
right.
And then theta sleep is more associated with light sleep. And that's a little
Okay.
faster rhythm
All
of
right.
about 3.5 to about 7.5
Okay.
cycles per second. And then alpha waves, which are calm but awake, are 7.5 to essentially 12.5. And then your thinking brain is faster, more like 12.5 up to, let's say 40 cycles per second.
Okay.
All right. So that's what the brain is doing. But when we talk about the autonomic nervous system, because remember, that is the controller of sleep and its stages.
All right.
And so that doesn't work at brainwave levels. That works at a lower rate. Because let's talk about evolution for a second. I think
All
people
right.
understand this better. The autonomic nervous system started to develop when fish started to develop organs. And that was about 450 million years ago.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, and that's how old this structure is in terms of
Wow.
its
Yeah.
development. And so this is a very, very primitive part of the nervous system. And as the nervous system evolved, layer upon layer, it had to operate at slightly faster frequencies with each new layer to control the functions below it.
Okay.
Okay, because it had to supervise and send signals out and say, all right, all you different areas have to operate now. And those different areas could work at lower rates because they didn't have much supervisory function, but the higher areas needed to supervise more.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you go higher, you end up with higher frequencies. And so the autonomic nervous system operates at frequencies that go as low as 0.003 cycles per second.
Wow. Really, really slow is what that
Yeah,
means.
so that means the wave lasts for almost 30 seconds.
Wow.
Okay? And it goes up to 0.4 cycles per second, so below delta levels. And so the different areas, parasympathetic, sympathetic, and then the very low frequencies, they operate again hierarchically, where sympathetic is lower because it's more primitive than parasympathetic. And so, and this is how, in part, we understand with our wearable exactly what frequencies are they emitting, and the autonomic nervous system in terms of heart rate variability, because there's more variability in the sympathetic than in the parasympathetic.
Okay.
And that clues us in that you're moving into these different stages of sleep. There you're kind of awake thinking. And then as you get more and more regular, so your heart rate variability is less, then you're moving into deep sleep, which is conferred by the parasympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system. So that's how we know this stuff is working. And stress actually works in a similar way. Like you said, when you're stressed, your heart rate is up and it's more variable depending on your activity level. But when you're very calm and relaxed, your heart slows down and it's boom, boom, boom. So it's nice and regular. So your heart rate variability is lower. And again, you can ascertain how stressed you are in addition to simply what your pulse rate looks like.
Huh. So let me just insert a little bit here, see if I have this right. Delta sleep, the really slow brain waves when the brain is regenerating and recuperating, and that autonomic nervous system is kind of readjusting itself. It's sending good messages, good healing down to the internal organs. But this slowness, the opposite of that is not only just being awake, but the antithesis of that is high levels of stress all the time. So high levels of stress are fine if an oncoming bus is about ready to hit you, or a lion's about ready to eat you. That's survival, but you can't survive and thrive at the same time. So what we want to do is we know we're going to have this, but we want to encourage the slowness of it. So things like meditation and mindfulness and relaxation and even a nap and all that are all ways that a person can do that to help mitigate the stress, but also lower our brainwave activity. But the Soltec machine sort of helps to massage that, if you will, or
Well,
encourage more of that, right?
yeah, and it does so because we know what the frequencies are for an individual that is operating in deep sleep or moving towards deep sleep.
Yeah.
So we tell the magnetic generator to
All right.
use those same frequencies because they will resonate then with those brain structures that will enhance that function. Okay. So, in other words, the nervous system evolved in the presence of the Earth's magnetic field. So it's
Okay.
attuned to it, it's sensitive to it. All right. And what we're doing is we're placing those beneficial frequencies for each stage of sleep in your local environment. And
Yeah.
it's close in so that it's just for you. And because your bed partner will have their own because they get tuned to each person's
Okay. I was wondering
rhythm.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it will do this, and it's the scientific term is entrainment.
Okay.
In other words, if you have two tuning forks that are
Yes.
the same and you hit one, it'll cause the other one to vibrate even without touching it. And
Okay.
so the magnetic fields and the brain work similarly. And it'll help the area. If you run the frequencies that are associated with the frequencies you want, then and the frequencies that a particular part of the nervous system operates at, then it enhances that function. It doesn't cause it to happen, but it increases it. And so what we found, for instance, as we get older, we lose that delta sleep. Over time, this then will restore that delta sleep. And that's key. I mean, when I started out, I'm 71 now. And, about 5 years ago, I had lost most of my delta sleep. And as a result, I was sleeping very poorly. I was only getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night
Mhm.
because the more delta you have, the more, it helps you sleep a normal amount, at least what's normal for you. And because I had lost that, I wasn't getting that so-called sleep inertia effect. And I was never a long sleeper, but I would typically get 6.5 hours, which was fine. I could
Yeah.
function well at that level.
Yeah.
But 3 to 4 hours, that was horrible. I mean,
Forgot about it.
it was 3, 4 cups of coffee a day,
Oh
naps.
yeah.
I mean, I would only do well with that level of support. Now I get the level of delta sleep as a 25-year-old. I mean, last
Nice.
night, for instance, I got an hour and 48 minutes of deep sleep. That's like a 20-year-old.
I got to check my stats. I'm gonna do that a little bit later. That's phenomenal. And Doc, what I'd really like to do as a neurologist and as a sleep expert, um, talk to my patients and the people who are watching this who have peripheral neuropathy. That's why they're here. They have damage to their peripheral nerves. Many of them also concomitantly at the same time have high blood pressure, diabetes. They have all these other peripheral nervous system things that the peripheral nervous system are controlling. So it is likely a part of their peripheral neuropathy. But we're going into sleep and we're going into the enhancement of sleep to improve our delta waves, which is where regeneration is. Why would it be? Why is sleep, or how does sleep actually help the person who's sitting here watching this right now, suffering with burning pain, numbness at the same time, tingling? It feels like I've got cardboard under my feet. My balance is all off. Why do I care about sleep? What and this machine to enhance it? Why is it? How can that actually help me to feel better and eventually to heal better?
Well, essentially, and I think you've already mentioned it, the fact that delta sleep is restorative and regenerative for the body. So it sets the stage for good things to happen. We were surprised in the early days of testing our technology to see that it wasn't just stress and sleep that it benefited, but we also saw improvements in peripheral neuropathy. And so we decided to study that. And we did. We've done clinical studies on that. And we are filing an application with the FDA to be able to make those claims. At present, we don't have FDA clearance to make those claims, so we can't promote it for that.
Okay.
But we found that there are nice beneficial results that occur. And some of it is because of better sleep and less stress. But some of it is also the direct effect on the nerves, because remember, all the nerves are operating in a way that they conduct a current. And whether that current is electrically induced or magnetically induced, actually, magnetically is a cleaner way to do it because you're dealing with such low frequencies. And electromagnetism doesn't work well at those low frequencies. So you have to amplitude modulate a faster frequency to get the low stuff. With a magnet, you just spin it more slowly and you're
Wow.
stimulating it. So that's key. We found that process is beneficial for the nerve itself. And more researchers are coming to that conclusion at this point, and we continue to do studies in that regards to see what are the optimal frequencies, how much time, should you spend doing it. And the good news is you don't have to do it and just focus on that. You just do it while you're watching TV, looking at your emails.
Yeah.
All you have to do is be by it, which is nice because most people either don't have the time or don't want to spend the time, spending a half hour,
Isn't
with
that
the
sad?
technology. Right.
Yeah. Isn't that sad? We just can't, we're so tightly booked in our schedule. We just can't fit in relaxation. And I say we, me included with that. I'm working on it. But wow, I mean that's phenomenal. And I want to just again put that little disclaimer in there that you don't have FDA clearance and we're not making any big claims and all that stuff. But can you talk about what you've discovered in your research, knowing that research is going to change and alter, and we thought this and now we think this, and but I think it's safe for you to tell us what you've discovered with regard to the importance of sleep and the peripheral nervous system. Can you share some of that with us?
I can. What's interesting is some of the same frequencies we use for sleep are the same frequencies we use for peripheral neuropathy. And so, as a result, just using it for sleep is beneficial for peripheral neuropathy. But
Okay.
when we look at peripheral neuropathy and we're dealing with the nerves directly, the nervous system, most people, when they think of the nervous system, they think, well, the nervous system is just composed of all these nerves.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is only 50% of the nervous system is composed of nerves. The other 50% are called glial cells,
Mm-hmm.
and they serve many functions. But the nervous system, the stem cell of the nervous system, comes from the glial system, from primitive astrocytes, which are the stem cell of the nervous system. So they're the real precursor, and they really hold the template of the nervous system. And in peripheral neuropathy, they're the cells that regenerate first. And as they regenerate, especially larger, peripheral nerves that are myelinated, because the myelin sheath is formed by glial cells.
Okay.
And so they're the ones that generate, and they generate this tube. And then when they get to the end point, they say, send down a nerve. And then one of them differentiates into a nerve and goes down the tube.
So cool.
So what we've seen in our studies is not only pain relief, but regrowth of nerves, because and we know this because the sensory function is improved. So people can feel touch better, they can feel hot versus cold.
And we
They
can measure that.
Yeah, and they can feel vibration, and their balance gets better. So we see all this thing, so we know there's a rejuvenative effect of the peripheral nerves, just like there is in the central nervous system, because the central nervous system is dynamic. I mean, we have something called neuroplasticity. I mean, this has
There
been
it
known
is.
for the past 30 years. And so if you pick up a new hobby, guess what? You're going to grow new nerve cells in the brain that connect to different regions and coordinate the activity, again, to make it more reflexive. You hear about muscle memory. Well,
Yes.
muscle memory is not
It's
memory in the
nerves.
muscle.
Yeah.
It's the nerves in the brain that
Yeah.
then know how to repeat this functionality.
You're building up those neurological pathways with that plasticity, which means that things can change. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of our people who are watching it, at least some people, a lot of people would know about the Bible, and they know about Genesis, right? So Genesis means the beginning, and the term that comes to mind is neurogenesis. If you put those two together, and I really want to hear this from a board certified medical neurologist, because people just don't believe me, Doc. And this is why I titled the book Reversing Neuropathy, Making the Impossible Possible, because literally almost 100% of patients who I consult with, who come in or I consult with online, I can just say this every time. I know you probably heard from your doctor that you have neuropathy and there's nothing you can do short of taking gabapentin or analytics that might help you to feel better, but there's nothing you can do. Learn to live with it. You're going to suffer with this forever. And these are primary care medical doctors, endocrinologists, certainly the oncologist, and it might sadden you, you probably know this, but the neurologist also, the creme de la creme of medicine, the guy or the gal who's done all this deep research into the nervous system himself, says there's nothing that can be done. And I'm interviewing a board certified medical neurologist. Can nerves heal, Doc?
Yeah, absolutely. The question is how much. I mean,
Okay.
in our work, if you have very, very severe peripheral neuropathy, and most of the neuropathic patients we've studied have diabetes.
Yep.
And so the nerves are living in a bad environment. And when we look at somebody who has open sores on their feet and they've already had amputations,
Yep.
and they don't feel anything in their feet, so they don't feel pain. That's the good news. The bad news
Yep.
is the reason they don't feel pain is because the nerves have been destroyed and they're
Yep.
just numb,
Yep.
so they don't feel anything. And we found even in those people, they get better, but just to a degree,
Yes.
because their blood supply is poor. There's enough nerve damage where it's hard to reconstitute those. But milder cases certainly can get better, and we've witnessed this, so we know it's the truth. But if your environment for your nerves is problematic,
Yep.
then there remains this propensity to go back to the illness unless you maintain the therapy.
Bam, you hit the nail on the head right there. Environment is so critical, and that's exterior environment, the crap we're breathing in and the stuff we're taking in the water. But I think you're also talking about the internal environment. So for a diabetic, the first thing we need to do is not give them more freaking metformin or more gabapentin. You're never going to metformin your way out of this thing. You got to clean up your environment. And this is a sugar regulation problem. We need to stop putting in the sugar immediately. You got to slow that down. You got to change your internal environment. You got to bathe those nerves in the best possible healing environment, and that comes with excellent diet. Stop drinking your dang sodas, start drinking water, good stress management like you were talking about, good sleep, and exercise when you can get to it. And like you were saying, that doesn't guarantee that the nerves are going to be able to heal, but you've given them the best opportunity to thrive. And in our clinical environment, we have found, and the research that we've done is we find about at 85%, and we use what's called the Toronto Clinical Scoring Assessment. It's really fast, it's easy, and it's pretty dang accurate, but you're checking pinprick, you're checking the sensation of cool, cold, heat, vibration, and light touch. When we check all of those, we can get a relative nerve damage assessment. Is it as accurate as a skin punch biopsy? No. Is it as good as an EMG or an MRI? Those all measure different things, but it gives us an assessment and we can see whether they're improving or they're not improving. But I think you're absolutely right. There is this limitation of matter. If you've done damage this thing so far bad, it may be too far gone. It still doesn't mean you should just, well, screw it, I'm just not going to change my environment whatsoever. It can still help. But we've basically found at about 85% damage or less, more often than not, we can get them significant improvements, sometimes all the way to 100%, not all the time. But we're really managing our patients' expectations when we measure 86% to 100% damage. I'm just looking a patient in the face saying, listen, you could do this entire program. You could follow it to a T, totally change your environment. Heck, you could get the Soltec. You could do mindfulness and do exercise and do all this equipment that we recommend, and you might not get anything out of it because where were you 10 years ago? You've damaged it so dang bad. We don't have people say you're on my last nerve. Like, you don't even have the last nerve. We have nothing from which to grow. I don't know if y'all have any kind of number of level of damage, but you said mild neuropathies. I've seen them from severe at 85% damage and less. And I'm really coming in like with pretty solid, I can help. You may not get 100%, but I know I can help. 86 to 100, you got to manage their expectations. I tell them, you might do this whole entire program and get nothing out of it. You got to know that. And I've seen good improvement. So what has your research shown, or even clinical findings?
We too have found that, if you have even moderate to severe disease, there is improvement. So again, it's not just mild. I mean, the mild respond very quickly. The moderate to severe, depending on how bad, takes longer, but we've seen response pretty quick.
That is awesome to hear from a neurologist who says, yes, neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, new nerve creation, nerves can change. Healing neuropathy is possible. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, I think it's not just peripheral neuropathy. I mean, when you look at the restoration of deep sleep, you're talking about a similar phenomenon. It depends on how badly those circuits have been lost. But again, if you pick up a new habit, you grow new circuitry. So if you provide the magnetic environment that says, hey, we're vibrating at these low levels, the circuits start to respond. My deep sleep level and many others have been, near the bottom. And I've restored all my functionality when it comes to delta sleep. What's interesting is I've restored my functionality where I could start exercising again. And if I don't exercise, I'll have good nights and not so good nights. But even my not so good nights are better than what I used to have. And so I would look at that and say, I want all my nights to be good. Well, again, if I want to sleep like a 20-year-old, I not only have to have the circuitry that will give me the potential to sleep like a 20-year-old, but I kind of have to act like a 20-year-old. Okay. Which means I've got to be as physically active as a 20-year-old. It's funny because right now, my wife and I are downsizing. I've got a 20-yard dumpster sitting in my
Wow.
driveway.
Whoa.
And and I'm the only one who's filling it. And so I'm getting a lot of exercise. And now doing that every day, every night is good delta. So I
Wow.
have to fulfill my potential by acting like a 20-year-old if I want that level. Again, I don't have to exercise that much to get reasonable delta. But if I really want the delta of a 20-year-old, I got to act more like it.
Doc, I think you hit another nail on the head, and the word that I would use would be a multifaceted approach. When we're dealing with something, whether it's neuropathy or cancer or diabetes or whatever, it's true. Sometimes we can have a patient just do the supplements we recommend and bam, they get better. So sometimes we hit a grand slam, step up to the plate, swing it, and it's out of the park. Sometimes we give certain exercises and that's all they do and they get better and this is amazing. Sometimes we give them one of our tools. It's an electric stimulator similar to a TENS, but it's not a TENS. It resonates at 7.83 hertz, which is the hertz that the nervous system resonates on. So it's, to use your word, it's in training or training the nervous system, kind of stimulating those nerves to work again. Sometimes they just do that tool and we get a result. And sometimes with the infrared lights that we prescribe, that's all they need and they get a good result. But the vast majority, if we can get them changing their diet, if we can get them sleeping better, which is tied in with diet, if we can get them exercising, which helps sleep and diet, if we can get them doing this rebuilder technology that rebuilds the nerves and the anodyne lights, which stimulates blood flow to the area, if we can throw all of it at it to, like you said, to quote you, to improve the environment, then what we're doing is we're bathing those nerves in the best environment so that really it's not the Soltec that is making sleep work. It's not the rebuilder. It's not these fancy vitamins. These things are just creating the environment so that the body can heal itself. And that really is the message of the book. I don't heal nerves. I don't know how to grow a nerve. I don't think you know how to grow a nerve. You know how the mechanisms happen. We know a little bit, but it's the body that heals itself. We're just creating the right environment so that those nerves can heal, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, what we've found, and this was surprising. We did a small study on peripheral neuropathy, and everybody got better. Not normal, but they had improvement.
Okay.
And we didn't change anything else, so that the subjects weren't
Makes
doing
sense.
anything differently.
Yeah.
So we know this technology will do that, and the same thing for sleep. It'll make you sleep better. The question is, how much better?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And that's where the multifaceted approach comes from. So you've got to get them to where they have the potential to get better, and then they start to get better, but then they can supplement that by doing these other things. And
Good.
again, speaking about what you were talking about regarding peripheral neuropathy and changing the internal environment, again, I would go back to stress because that is probably the biggest factor in terms of creating insulin resistance
There
because
we
of
go.
the constant, barrage of cortisol. And so the insulin, it essentially becomes ineffective. And then, your diabetes is not controlled well enough.
Which is the number one cause of nerve damage called peripheral neuropathy.
Yeah.
So I want to really kind of circle back around and kind of wrap this whole thing up. What I'm hearing is that, well, sleep is critically important, not just to the healing of neuropathy, but everything. It's really the paramount of everything. And I think I'd like to give our viewer, and we can drop a link in here so they can get to that. I want to give a testimonial as I did earlier on. I'm a user. I knew that sleep was important. I knew that as I was aging with different stresses in my life, kind of like the midlife crisis sort of stuff going on, I knew sleep was important. I knew I wasn't sleeping well. I knew that wasn't a good thing. And like I said, I think maybe by the hand of God, I don't know what it was, but you personally sent me an email and said, check this thing out. I paid full price. I'm not getting any discount and I'm not getting any kind of kickbacks or anything like that, but I'm going to give a testimonial in the, gosh, I have to go back, maybe the 3 months or so that I've had it. My sleep has definitely measurably improved. And I can measure that based on how I feel throughout the day, but also with what I call the gizmo, because the gizmo, the Soltec every day gives me a score. And I scored lower last night because I didn't give myself enough time. I had this interview and I stayed up too late, acting like a 20-year-old, Dan. I stayed up too late, had too much fun, didn't give myself enough bedtime, so I scored a 73. And for me, nowadays, a 73 is like, man, I really missed the mark on that one. Because when I first started, boy, I was in the 60s, like failing grades. I was way down here. So now I'm bummed out at a 73. That's like one of my lower scores. The night before that, I gave myself plenty of time. I got a 93, man. I knocked it out of the park. So I agree with you. Not every single night is scoring in the 90s. I think that's unrealistic to have that expectation. But the testimonial is that for me and to our viewers, this gizmo here, and now thanks to Dr. Cohen, I have a better understanding of how these magnets connect with the wearable, and how the wearable is detecting my heart rate variability and how accurate that is, and they're talking and communicating and enhancing what's already going on. It has definitely been a game changer. I don't pack it up in the car when I go out of town or whatever, but I do miss it. I'm like, man, I don't have my gizmo tonight. But I still feel like the benefits carry over. I feel like you use the word in training, I feel like it's training my nervous system to do it. So even if I'm a night or two or three, or if I'm at a conference, longer away from it, I still feel like it has trained my nervous system to sleep better. So is there any accuracy with that concept? Is there a carryover?
Yeah, there is, but you kind of nailed it with your time frames. What we find is we've had a lot of people that use it regularly and then they go on vacation. And if their vacation is about 4, 5, 6 days, they're okay.
Okay.
When they start going beyond that, their sleep starts to degrade. Usually by 3 to 4 weeks, it's back to where it was,
Okay.
beforehand. The good news is, as soon as they get back, they don't have to build up again.
There's that muscle memory again, or the
Well,
brain memory, really.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's the point. The circuitry is there now, so you don't have to wait and regrow anything. It's already there,
Okay.
and as a result, boom, you use it and you get right back to where you were.
Awesome. So we're definitely going to put a link to Soltec. Is the best way to get a hold of your company and to learn more about it is what's the website? Is it soltec.com?
It's soltechealth.com,
Okay.
and there's an awful lot of information on the website.
Yeah.
So there's no lack of knowledge if you go through the website in terms of gleaning the information you need.
Awesome. Yeah, Sol spelled as the Spanish word for sun, Soltech,
Well,
health.
well, actually, TEC and then health. So there's only
Sol-
one.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, great. Well, we'll make sure we put it in there so people can have access to that. And I hope we're stimulating at least thought with people. And I hope that the main message is how important sleep is, and that there are things that can be done. And from my perspective as a nerve specialist and helping people to heal from peripheral neuropathy, how critically important sleep is. And if there's something that you can do, buy, manage, or whatever in order to help that sleep, even a smidge, it will definitely help your whole body to adapt to our environment, to basically to heal better, right?
Absolutely. I mean, think back when you were a child. I mean, for most of us, we would close our eyes, when we went to bed, and
Yeah.
when you opened them, it was morning. And so
Yeah. Don't
your
remember
sleep was
anything.
right, was totally consolidated. And what we notice now is, look, I mean, those of us that are getting older, We still need to wake up, let's say in the middle of the night, and go to the bathroom.
Yep.
The good news is you're tired enough when you go to the bathroom that when you get back in bed, you can fall back to sleep.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes my nights are two consolidated chunks of sleep, with a bathroom break. Whereas before, I would only get that first chunk, then I'd wake up. I wouldn't be tired enough to go back to sleep. And
Yep.
so as a result, I'm only getting 3 to 4 hours a night. And now I'm back up to 6.5 to 7.
That's awesome. Like a 20-year-old. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, Doc, I really appreciate all the time and the expertise that you put into this talk, and also the 15 plus years of all of your research, and the great people you have behind you, the great brain you have in there to really help humanity. I think you've really, I would say, stumbled upon. I don't think you stumbled upon. I think you're in the correct lane to help a lot of people. And I hope this interview reminds people, or maybe even shouts to them how critically important not just sleep, but good sleep, deep sleep, delta sleep, that rejuvenating slow wave sleep, how critically important it is to not only heal the nerves, but to allow a human to adapt to our environment as best as possible. I wholeheartedly, recommend the Soltec technology. I love it. I'm so happy that you reached out to me, and I hope this really stimulates people to at least check out your site and check this thing out. This gizmo is totally amazing. Any last notes while we wrap up here, Dr. Cohen?
The only thing I would say is in the app, we talk about sleep and the like, but we also have a section where you can do stress sessions,
Yeah, yeah, let's
stress
go into that. I
reduction.
did mean to talk about that. Yes.
And what's so nice about that is when you're asleep, obviously you'll know in the morning how well it's working for you. And it does take some time,
Yeah, it
you
does.
because for a lot of people, you have to grow back some circuits. So
Yes,
that'll take a
it does
month or
take
two.
time.
What's nice about the stress reduction section is you learn how to feel the effects, not just in terms of lowered stress, but most people, when they start using it, they start to feel this mild tingling in their feet. And then over time, it moves up the legs and it moves into your hands.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it goes full body. What's really nice about that is once you know what that feels like, and for many of us, it doesn't take too long. Now, obviously, it may take longer with peripheral neuropathy, but once you have that feeling, humans are very good at replicating how you feel.
Especially when it feels good.
Yes.
I want
And
more of that.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so even when you're not using the technology, if you can recreate that feeling, immediately you move into a more calm state. And then with continued use of the technology, that whole sense deepens and deepens. And to me, I love that even more than sleeping well because
Oh.
it decreases my stress level. And as a result, my sleep is better just from that. I mean, I work
Oh.
with some of our users that have had very, very severe childhood trauma.
Yeah.
What's been so helpful to our development was realizing that we had to help these people with stress even before they could benefit from sleep. So it was really important to get them to know what it felt like to relax. And that allowed them to fall asleep and even have deeper sleep because they were less vigilant. In other words, people that have had trauma, people that are very anxious because some danger may befall them, you know,
Yeah.
they're hyper vigilant, and you have to
Right.
be able to calm them down so that they're not that way in order for them to sleep better and deeper. And so the stress part, I think, is every bit as valuable as the sleep part.
Dang, I think you just said that section for me right there, because I've only used the stress part twice, maybe in 3 months. So I'm really glad you said that. I don't know why, just like, I don't know, that's just another little thing they have there. Maybe they're trying to sell me another added value or whatever. I didn't really put too much credence into that.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little more about how the stress setting on the Soltec helps? Because I know on there you can slide the bar for, you can set it for an hour nap or a half an hour or whatever, but you can also set the intensity. So can you tell me a little bit more about how that works?
Yeah, the best thing to do is leave the intensity at 100.
Okay,
Okay,
that's
because
where I have it.
that'll be and it's not like turning up the volume on your radio. Okay, that actually sets a different frequency.
Okay.
But what we've also learned is that frequency is not always the same for
Oh,
everybody. Like, for
okay.
instance, the people that are hypervigilant, they're acting more from the sympathetic division than the parasympathetic. They actually need a lower frequency that's closer to the sympathetic. So we
Oh,
built in a little trap door that actually allows you to adjust the frequency specific to your needs. I'm not going to tell you how to do that, but I would recommend that anybody that wants to learn just call our customer support, and they'll take you through how to make that setting, how to adjust it, so you can find, basically you're tuning that to your nervous system so you get what you
whoa.
want. And you try it for a couple days at these different levels and you see where you fit. But, one quick clue is if you've had any kind of anxiety issues or past traumas, you're probably going to be a little on the lower side. I mean, and that might be 0.18 versus 0.23. So
Okay.
even though it sounds like it's a tiny little difference,
Right.
this is a part of the nervous system that doesn't have a big range.
Hmm. So it can
Okay.
make a big
So
difference.
a little change makes a big difference. And we found, particularly on some of the clients that I work with, we've had to take them to lower levels for them to get the effectiveness. And that spills over into what happens at night. Just by doing that allows them to sleep better.
All right, so you're really opening my mind to stress reduction, stress mitigation, and how the Soltec can help out with that. I'm definitely going to try it out. I don't know why I didn't give credence. I do like taking a nap. It's usually when I'm really tired, mid part of the day or whatever. But with this stress reduction setting on the Soltec, you said as long as I have it near where I'm sitting, somewhere near where I'm sitting, and turn it on for 30 minutes or 60. What I'm getting is, I always thought like, oh, you have to be closing your eyes and taking a nap and getting ready for that. But what I'm hearing is that no, you don't. You can be checking your emails or working or whatever, and you can just put it on a stress reduction. So this is probably like, duh, how did you not get this? But the settings on stress reduction, I'm going to keep it all the way at 100, but the settings on that is different than sleep when I'm putting in a sleep setting.
Yeah, especially when you go to the advanced menu. And again, customer support will help people to do that.
Okay. All
And will
right.
help guide the person to do that. But in the beginning, I would say use the stress reduction part of the system. And in the beginning, don't do anything else but pay attention to how your feet feel. I
Okay.
feel this, and there's three feelings that people typically get. Most commonly, it's this very mild tingling.
Yes, I
Okay.
felt that.
Okay. And that's good because once you feel that, and then you allow that to, move throughout your body, you'll end up feeling it everywhere. Okay. But again,
Okay.
it takes time. And
Is this,
then,
would that be more evident in the stress setting or in the sleep setting, or should I be feeling it on both of them?
well, you'll feel it in the sleep until you fall asleep. But
Okay.
if you, the stress is designed to do it while you're awake. And
Ah,
so you'll
okay.
feel it then. But once you know what that feeling is like, and again, it can be that slight tingling, it can be a sense of warmth, it
Yeah.
might be a sense of fullness, but you'll feel something different. And as a result, once you know what that feels like, then move to, okay, all I need to do is have this by my feet, and I can be checking emails and doing whatever, watching TV. But periodically, turn your attention to your body and say, where am I feeling it? Am I feeling it further throughout
Mm,
my body? And so that it's a great exercise, but it's also a great tip for falling asleep at night because you've got to get out of your head. And one of the
right.
best things to do is put your attention on your body and say, how does my body feel?
Awesome.
And when you do that, you stop thinking, and then it's
Yeah.
easier to fall asleep and to
Yeah.
get back to sleep.
Focus on those toes, the feet, the ankle. You know, it's funny, Doc. I guess I thought maybe I was hallucinating or something, but I'm like, I feel like I'm getting a little tingle down there or something. And I was just thinking, probably placebo effect. I know there's a magnet down there, but this is a real thing. We can
Correct.
actually feel this tingling or warmth or whatever in the legs.
Well, just sitting here right now, because I've been using the technology for so long, I can talk to you, and at the same time, I can feel this throughout my entire body. And when I do that, I'm also very, very calm. And my pulse rate drops immediately. My resting pulse is now down to about 65.
Nice.
But when I do this, my pulse rate drops into the 50s. I mean,
Wow.
I did a stress session yesterday morning. A lot of times, because I wake up early, after let's say 6.5 hours of sleep, sometimes I just don't want to get up because it's just too early. And so because I tend to go to bed fairly early. And so what I'll do is I'll then do an hour stress reduction session. And yesterday that happened to me where, I woke up early, decided to do a stress session, and and I did it for an hour. And my pulse rate during that, an average over the entire hour was 54.
Wow. That's
Okay.
awesome.
Right. And but again, I've gotten to the point where I can feel this throughout my entire body, but it totally de-stresses you. And as a result, I know what it's like to have no stress. And so when I do feel stress, I have to ask myself, what is happening that I do feel stress? Because, for a lot of people that are anxious, for instance, they just want to suppress that activity. But you really want to learn how to relax so you can say, why do I feel this way? What is happening? Am I having an argument with my spouse? Is it that I'm worried about finances? Is it I'm worried about the world condition and all the wars? What is it? And then
Wow.
learn how to say, okay, how do I fix this so that I don't worry about these things? Or what do I need to solve in order to fix it?
Wow, that's some really sage advice. We're way outside of sleep and neuropathy. You're just talking about the human condition, and that's phenomenal. I just want to make sure I circle back and make sure I heard that right. As an example, again, this is for me, for Brian here. You went to bed and you put your the Soltec on the sleep setting, and you woke up relatively early. What I'm hearing is that while you were still in bed, you were kind of awake, and you just went right, you hit stop record, and then you went right in while still in bed, and you went for a stress reduction session.
Yeah, and if you start your day that way, you'll find that between good sleep and the stress reduction session, it's hard to get stressed during the day.
Dang, I could have done that this morning. Well, I really, really appreciate that little, I guess what's probably going to be a really important either distinction or a new model of thinking right there with regard to the Soltec.
Yeah, I think it's really valuable because, most people say, "Oh, that's a sleep device," and they just totally ignore the stress
Yeah.
reduction feature.
Yep.
And
Yep.
as a physician, I'd say, no, you know what? The stress reduction feature is every bit, if not more important than the sleep function.
Oh man. So this is a perfect way and perfect time to wrap it up. I think it's not just the stress in the world, but how the nervous system responds to the stress. And what I'm hearing is that you can help the nervous system to better mitigate or to respond better by sort of massaging those um, regions of the brain that is maybe just needing a little bit of help, a little bit of
Okay,
massage, a little bit of support in that. And that's
right.
what I'm hearing is that the Soltec with its magnets, with its connection to the wearable, which is checking the heart rate variability, which is identifying where we might be stressing and just trying to help that nervous system to better adapt, I guess.
Right. I mean, it's working at the frequencies that are associated with the parasympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system, because that's what gives you that relaxation effect. That's what produces it. And that was really the mission at the beginning of this company was, can we do this in a way that is safe and non-invasive and drug-free? I mean, it was that simple because, again, I was taught in medical school, 75 to 90% of all medical problems are either caused by or made worse by stress. And so I would ask my professors, well, if stress is such a big deal,
Yeah,
why aren't we treating it as a primary pathology? And they would give me good answers. They would say, well, it's at the center of the brain. We can't get to it with stimulators. The neuroreceptors on that part of the brain are spread throughout the rest of the brain, so the side effects would be too bad. And you've got these behavioral techniques, and unfortunately, unless you're willing to go sit on a mountaintop for 20 years, you're not going to get good enough at it. And
yeah.
so our goal was, can we find a way? And again, we didn't, the odds were against us. And that's why it took so long. I mean, you know, it just took us many, many years to figure it out. And also, we were lucky along the way. Different things happened that I think really helped us to figure this out.
Yeah, I think you had positioned yourself. It probably wasn't luck. You had positioned yourself so that the universe really conspired to bring you the information, the education, the people, or whatever to get you to where you're at. And I just really want to thank you for being you and for really helping us to take the complex, the brain, the central and the peripheral nervous system, take that complex and bring it down into the simple, digestible packets of information that I can follow, and hopefully most of our viewers can follow. But sleep is important. We can help it. It's critical for neuropathy and for all things related to the human nervous system. Stress and stress reduction is at the core, or at least the foundation of most human ailments, from cancer to diabetes to, yes, neuropathy, and probably even a cold sore, and everything in between. COVID, I mean, who there's literally nothing I could think of where optimizing your sleep wouldn't be a good idea.
Right. And reducing stress.
And reducing stress, that's the message I'm getting, Doc.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dr. Cohen, I really appreciate you taking all this time to help break this stuff down. We're going to put a link there so people can find you on the internet. Do you also have, are you on social media? Do you have any other channels or anything else you'd like to share with us where they can find you and learn more about you and your approach to sleep and stress reduction?
Well, I'm not on social media, but the company is. I mean,
Okay.
so there's a YouTube channel. We've got a presence on Twitter. I know we spend some time on Instagram and Facebook, but I don't know what the level of the site is there.
All right, fair enough. What we'll do is when we get done with this, I'll get that information from you. We'll make sure we drop it down in our description box down below so that they can have as much access to your company and learn all about sleep and the importance of sleep and stress and the importance of stress reduction. And I guess just as a little teaser, you're having some great research coming out specifically regarding, and I think it's diabetic peripheral neuropathy, and you're coming up with a system that you're working on getting FDA clearance or approval on that.
Mhm.
I know we kind of have to be a little hush hush right now. We don't want to speak too much about it, but people need to be really connected with you and your company's presence on these social media sites so that when this exciting research drops, they'll have, first right of refusal, I guess. They'll have the first opportunity to check it out and see. Once again, strong testimonial from me, from a guy who had some serious sleep troubles. That Soltec gizmo works. It works really well. So if you're watching this, you definitely want to check this system out.
Thank you, Brian.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. We look forward to really continuing our friendship and our professional relationship as well. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of good positives, a lot of good likes on this, and For those of you who are listening, if there's areas that you'd like Dan and I, Dr. Cohen and I, to dive deeper on and explore other areas, put them in the comment box below. We will read those, and we'll compile a list. And if I can get on Dan's schedule again, I'd look forward to continuing this conversation.
No, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Dan, take good care. Blessings to you and your family. Dan, I'm going to let you go. I thank you so much. For those of you who are watching, remember this is Sleep Awareness Month, so hopefully this helps you to become more aware of sleep and stress and how important that is. And y'all take good care, okay?